Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and before we start today's show, I wanted to talk to all the guitar players out there about something really interesting. If you're a guitar player, or probably any other kind of musician, or if you know a musician who's looking to make some more money without having to tour or go on the road, or put up with any of the other BS that musicians normally have to deal with, then what I'm about to tell you is probably the most exciting and important message you'll ever hear. As a business guy who just happens to play guitar, one of the first things I realized after interviewing, say, the first 50 or so guitar players was that if I was going to get into this business today, the first thing I'd look at doing is learning how to license your music. And by licensing music, I mean getting your music inserted into movies, television shows, and commercials. And here's why. There are 4 reasons, actually. First of all, focusing on record deals, publishing, and touring means that you're putting your destiny in someone else's hands. You're at the whim of someone who has literally thousands of other people competing for their attention, many of whom, frankly, may have music with more commercial appeal than your music has, which means you get what's ever left over as far as attention from that particular manager, publisher, publicist, or booking agent, right? And I don't know how you feel, but for me, I'm totally uncomfortable leaving my destiny and my family's financial future up to someone else. Second, I've learned in business that if you work in areas that are less competitive and not as crowded, your likelihood of success goes up dramatically. And there are way less people competing to have their music licensed than there are trying to make records, get their songs published, and go on tour. In fact, there are so many people competing to play music, the average working musician today, by and large, earns the same or less money than they were making back in the 1970s and 1980s. Third, in the licensing business, it's not unusual to have one or more of your songs wind up paying you multiple times over and over again. In some cases, day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. In fact, some songs you even get paid on multiple times over from a variety of sources because different people wind up licensing that same song from you. Many times you get paid for songs you recorded months or even years ago. So no work you do is ever wasted. Even if a particular song doesn't get picked up right now, there's a very good chance it can get picked up later. And the more music you write, the more opportunities you get for placements. The more placements, the more money you make, both up front as income from licensing fees and on the backside in terms of royalties for years to come. And the fourth reason I like this industry is that a free ebook has just been published, which pretty much takes you by the hand and shows you step by step how to get your music licensed. The book is less than 20 pages long, and it was written by Mike Elsner, who I interviewed in episode number 167 of this show. Mike's been doing this for over 14 years, and he's actually had over 2,000 songs licensed at this point in time. Now, I want you to pay attention to something because that means he's getting paid to license almost 150 songs per year. Now, keep in mind, most successful career musicians don't even get paid for 150 songs in total over a 30 or 40-year career, yet Mike's getting paid for this on an annual basis. And in this free ebook, you'll discover the 4 simple steps to licensing success, including step 1, which actually shows you how to get paid a significant upfront licensing fee as well as quarterly royalties. You'll learn how to get paid for learning how to play a new instrument. And I'm not kidding. He actually shows you an example of he basically practiced a new instrument and he licensed all the songs, and he walks you through this. In step 2, you'll learn how to quickly expand your song catalog by 5 to 6 times its current size without having to create literally anything new. That's right, you'll learn how to easily turn 10 songs into 50 to 60 songs in less than 5 minutes each. And each one of those new songs now becomes another new asset you can sell. You'll learn what to do, and maybe even more important, what not to do to get your music quickly noticed by music supervisors. And this one simple nugget alone easily makes the difference between regularly getting your music licensed and never getting it licensed at all. He'll show you 4 ways to get paid to license your music, and then you get to pick and choose which one of those 4 ways works best for you. And you'll also get to uncover little-known secrets to using common websites online to get free names of people who would want to license your music. And the other cool thing I like about this business is that you can run it all from your home studio. No ivory tower record label executives telling you what to play and how to play it, and no shady managers or backroom publishers with their own agenda telling you what to do. So download Mike's free ebook on music licensing right now. Just go to everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike, M-I-K-E. That's it, real simple. Let me know how you like the book, and now let's get on with the show. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. I have with us today, we're going to show some love to the keyboards. And I've got really an accomplished keyboard player, happens to be a hell of a nice guy, real super cool, mellow dude. We're with Jimmy Wallace. Jimmy's originally from Louisiana, and he's currently out on tour with Joe Walsh. He was classically trained on piano at age 8, and he became inspired originally by Motown players like Billy Preston, Stevie Wonder, and Ray Charles. At 20, he was attending Middle Tennessee State University, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Jimmy, outside of Belmont, that's like the next, that's like not the next, that's the other big music program.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That was the school, probably, actually before Belmont took off, they had a really cool studio that they had built. And then as time progressed, Belmont kind of caught up with them. But yeah, it's a great school. Yeah,
that's what I've interviewed a couple of people from there, I'm pretty sure. So straight out of Middle Tennessee State, he joined Kenny Wayne Shepherd as a B3 organ player and a piano player. And he was very integral as part of the Ledbetter Heights, Trouble Is, an award-winning 10 Days Out Blues from the Backroads CD and DVD. And he also performed live with the band for 12 years internationally. And he shared the stage with people like the Eagles, Aerosmith, Van Halen, B.B. King, the Black Crowes, Jimmy Page, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Bob Dylan, and the Rolling Stones. Shit, that's like...
Yeah.
it's kind of boring after that, I would imagine.
Right. No, man, it was pretty cool. We got to tour and hang out with some pretty incredible musicians and characters.
Yeah.
Nothing else. It's crazy people.
I'm going to add,
but awesome.
Some of that. Yeah, I would imagine. In between tours with Kenny Wayne, he also collaborated with other artists from different genres, including Nadea Davenport from the Brand New Heavies, Leroy Parnell, and even Chuck Berry. In 2008, Jimmy was recruited by pop singer Gavin DeGraw to tour internationally with his band, playing acoustic guitar, Hammond B3, piano, and singing background vocals. And you also play drums, don't you? For some reason,
I do. Yeah,
that's what I thought. Wow, and you could lease Jimmy on all these instruments. Do you charge if somebody wants you to play 3 different instruments? Do you charge them 3 times the rate?
No.
You don't?
Not really. I mean, I'd probably negotiate a better rate than normal. But
no, I was just curious. Yeah. Like seriously, I was curious how that works. Because I'm like, wait a minute. Give you buy 2 get 1 free or something.
Well, it depends if you're doing overdubs for someone. Like if I was doing stuff at my house, maybe. But like if we were recording and tracking live, you're paid for your time.
Sure.
And so the longer it takes, the more you're compensated.
Gotcha. In 2010, Jimmy independently wrote, recorded, produced, and released a concept album titled "Working for Peanuts," which is a pretty diverse range of style and composition. It was inspired by the original Peanuts composer, Vince Guaraldi, who that guy is just he's done some great stuff, man.
Yeah. I love I love his style because he has, of course, there's your typical jazz influence, but he's got this really cool kind of soulful, bluesy influence that he only shows you every so often, and then it's really cool, but simple too. He's not overthinking it. Like guys like Oscar Peterson, who's amazing, but man, your head will explode if you listen to too much of that stuff, in my opinion. But I love Vince, man. He was great.
Well, there's a couple of guys I know that, the song, I think it's called Linus and Lucy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Stu Hamm, I interviewed him, the bass player, and he does a version of it online on YouTube, which is kick-ass. But I think Gary Hoey or some guitar player did that, and it was killer, man. It was really good. So a lot of people are hip to Vince Guaraldi.
Yeah.
Jimmy also has a really cool band that he plays with in Nashville. It's John Randall Stewart, Jesse Alexander, Mike Bubb, Larry Adamanuik, and Guthrie Trapp. And the band's called 18 South, and they've got a really good reputation. They've played at the Station Inn, as well as festivals across the country, including Telluride Bluegrass Festival and the Strawberry Music Fest in Yosemite. And I think you guys have a standing gig, don't you?
Yeah, we when we play in town, we play Station Inn. And you may be thinking of another thing I do that me and Guthrie Trapp do. That's like every Wednesday night. But we 18 South, I would say, has been my favorite band to play live with, and it's just harder for us to play because of life. And John and Jesse are married to each other, and they have 3 kids, and Bub's doing his thing and I'm doing my thing. But we did just do a gig right before Christmas, December 23rd, sold it out at Station Inn. And it was awesome. I wish we played more, and I think eventually we will. It's just got to wait and see.
Yeah, you're right. That life thing kind of gets in the way sometimes.
It does.
In 2013, Jimmy joined the Wallflowers with Jacob Dylan, and in between touring, he also does a lot of studio sessions with people like John Oates, Bonnie Bishop, Jewel, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Jack Ingram, John Randall Stewart, Gary Parsoza. I got that right?
Oh, Gary Pachoza. Yeah,
Pachoza.
He's a great engineer and producer, and just a cool dude. Gets great sounds and works with a lot of artists.
Cool.
And I got
T-Bone Burnett and Dave Cobb are also in there. Do you know Duke Levine?
Duke Levine,
because he just did an album with Mary Chapin Carpenter, and it's not his first one. Guitar player.
No, I don't. I do not know him.
I wonder if you guys bumped into each other. Yeah. Anyway, Jimmy's also written songs, and his songs have been recorded by the McCrary sisters, Seth Walker, and his writing partner, Bonnie Bishop, who he just mentioned. He was performing with Charles Kelly from Lady A on a solo tour, and in 2016, he started working with the legendary Joe Walsh on keyboards. And Jimmy's also the brother of David Wallace, who's the lead guitarist for Jake Owen, and I had the pleasure of interviewing David twice. One time when he was kind enough to share his experience in being out at the Las Vegas festival. He was literally right there at the shooting. And if you want to check that out, go back and listen to episode number 49, and you could find it on everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And then we had David's normal backstory conversation in episode number 103. So Jimmy Wallace, I thank you, man. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate your time and your patience. We scheduled this a long time ago.
We did, and then we got busy, but thank you for having me. Yeah,
of course, man. So let me ask you, you're 20 years old, you're going to college, and boom, Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, it's kind of funny. So, I started college at LSU in Baton Rouge because that's where everyone thought they should go. Mm-hmm. And I did not want to go to college, honestly. I just wanted to play music. I was playing in a band with this chick named Betty Lewis. We were called Betty Lewis and the Executives. And this chick was an amazing singer and old school gospel soul stuff. And so I go to LSU reluctantly, hated it, and then found MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University, in their program, and then worked my way there and went there. And with the first semester I went there, I'm still kind of learning my way. I knew no one there. I think I knew one dude, and that was it. And we weren't really friends, but I came home for a summer. This is like 93, I think, and I was playing at a bar called Shooters, playing. We would jam for an hour and then call up whoever wanted to jam, come up, or like an open. Like I was the host. Like, here's my keyboard. It's my gig, but you're welcome to whoever wants to come play, can play. Well, and then Kenny Wayne Shepherd came in there at 14, I believe, with his father, Ken Shepard. And he was like, "Hey, this is my son. He wants to jam." I'm like, "Yeah, get his ass up there." and for a 14-year-old, man, it was like, "Damn, this kid's pretty good, man." And then his father, was in the radio world. He was a program director at a pretty well-known station that reached a lot of people in that area. At the time, it was like a pop rock station, I think, or top 40 maybe. And he kind of approached me and said, "Hey, would you want to kind of just jam?" And he basically said, "This is my son. He wants to play guitar, and he wants, we want to make something happen. This is." I did appreciate the kind of like, "Hey," he was like, "No, we want shit to happen. We don't want to just go jam and be like, oh, well, that was cool." And so I knew there could be an opportunity there, but also, I wasn't that much older than Kenny, honestly. I mean, and then we became friends and started jamming together, and that's how it happened. And next thing you know, Irving Azoff is, we're jamming and doing our thing at this little place called Tommy's Place. And next thing you know, there's all these, like, there's dudes from RCA there. There's dudes from, Geffen, and just, coming in and watching us play. And sometimes we didn't even know it. And next thing you know, Kenny, Irving signs Kenny, and we start the first record, and that's it.
So you basically went from like living in a dorm room. Were you living in a dorm when you were going to MTSU, or were you commuting to home?
No, I was. I did live in a dorm at LSU, but I had roommates. I had an apartment for a little bit at MTSU by myself, just because the dorm room was that experience was pretty terrible. And thank God my parents were like, well, they hooked me up with that. And then I got like roommates in a house, so it's affordable. But I had my own little room, and that was pretty much it.
So you go from living in like roommate situation, and all of a sudden you're like, touring around the world almost overnight.
Yeah, it was fast. I mean, we did a good year in a Suburban, pulling a trailer, rubbing shoulders each other, very uncomfortable. But when you're 20 or 21, it's not that big of a deal. And, then eventually we got a tour bus, and the record was out and having some success. And, I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was getting experience and getting exposed to a lot of things that I would never have gotten to experience otherwise.
What did if I remember correctly, your dad was a teacher, or is there someone or your mom?
Yeah, they both were. My mom was a teacher, librarian, and my dad started out as a teacher, and then kind of went into became like a counselor and then vice principal.
So how were they, like, typically for academics, you got to go to school when you're the kid. How did they deal with, hey, I'm going on tour with Kenny Wayne Shepherd?
I think by then they had already tried to force me into college, and I damn near had a nervous breakdown because of it. And I came to them honestly saying, if I stay on this path, I will die. My soul will wither up and die. And I'm just telling you. And they're like, okay, well, we don't want you to die. So, but it was true. I was really depressed. I was, I had to do what I knew I needed to do, and by the time the Kenny Wayne Shepherd thing happened, it was early. We had finished Ledbetter Heights sometime in '94. We did it in Memphis, so I'd commute from Murfreesboro to Memphis on like a Thursday, and my grades by then were kind of going to shit anyway.
It's like a 4-hour drive from where you.
Yeah, it was a long time. Yeah. But I would stay there till like a Sunday or Monday, and by early '95, it was like, well, it's time. Let's tour. I'm like, okay, I quit.
Right.
You know, that was it. It was like, I remember I had enrolled, and then I ended up leaving before I even finished that. I only had like I was a senior by then too. I only had, I can't remember, 20 something hours left, but I left. And, of course, you know, my parents are like, well, once you leave college, you're on your own. You know, it's like, you know, you should go back when you want, but, you know, on your own dime.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, so so the tour began, and that was, you know, where it started.
So then you did Kenny Wayne Shepherd for 12 years, which is really unusual. Like, I mean, your first, especially your first, like it was your first pro gig, pretty much. And,
yeah.
And what were the biggest, like, what was two things, the biggest changes in you, like professionally and personally, developmentally wise, from like when you first started till the time you finished? And the second question is, were there any like lessons or disappointments or like, wow, like eye-opening things about the business of music that you learned when you were on that tour?
Oh yeah. You know, I learned about myself. Yeah, I learned to be confident. I learned that, hey, I'm, you know, sure, I had a lot to learn too, but, you know, I was still pretty good. You know, like I was like, you know, I'm okay. You know, while before you just don't know. You think, you know, everyone, you're intimidated by so many other aspects and people and situations, and I changed for the better. I did go a little dark too, though. Like touring is that, as much as we worked, I did feel isolated from other life, and, you know, and that tends to, you get into other things, and the long hair, and you know, I remember feeling very isolated from my family. And when we first started touring, of course, you know, nobody had cell phones, and
right.
I remember not even talking to my brother or anybody just because it was a hassle to try to make those connections. And
sure.
For God, it may have been 10 months or something where I didn't talk to a family member or something. I think, you know, and so there was that. And to your second question about, I think the second part of that was, refresh me on it.
Were there any disappointments about the music business itself that you sort of got like, wow, holy shit?
Just the dishonest aspect of it. How the part where, you know, there's a manipulation thing there too when it comes to record companies and management, and, you know, they kind of dangle the proverbial carrot, you know, in front of your face and say, hey man, you know, we're going to do this for you. Hey, all you guys are going to have, you know, a Mercedes. Just keep working. And you work your ass off. And you're like, all right, where's my Mercedes? Where's my raise? Where? and they're like, what are you talking about? No, get back out there and work. You know. So
really, that people would make promises like that, just blatant, like lies, basically.
Yeah, just to
wow.
Just is bullshit. You know, they would tell you, or, you know, for me, you know, in the first few years, I didn't have any leverage to make money. And I didn't care about making money. It's not why I was, and that's not the reason I do this,
Sure.
But at some point, the older I got, I started approaching, 26, 27 years old. I'm like, wait a minute, I've been on tour for 4 years now, and I make $23,000 a year, and you're driving a new BMW every 7 months. So you know what I mean? It's like, it was like,
yeah.
okay, wait. So I had to learn how to fight for myself and how to negotiate, and I also had to walk away from stuff that I necessarily didn't want to walk away from, but to prove a point. And that 12-year span was not consistent either. I mean, I did walk away. I did have to walk away from the band around 98, 99, I think, and ended up. I didn't miss much because it was break time anyway. But I remember leaving the tour for a couple of reasons. But the main reason was I needed a change, and I did finishing my degree and getting a bachelor's.
For you, man.
And then went and played with India, played some other things, worked with some other artists, but then eventually, came back and did more tours and things with Kenny.
Was that because of your rapport with Kenny? Or did they finally say, "Hey, we're going to pay you properly"? Or
no, eventually they paid. We got a raise, but it cost us some other band members. They sort of tricked us into signing something, and this is a long time ago, so I really don't care. I'm really still real close with Kenny, and still. Any resentment that I may have had toward him as father is long since gone.
You don't seem bitter about it.
I'm not.
I'm not getting that at all.
No, I'm not. Well, I'm just saying, if they were to hear this, I don't. That would be. I don't care that they hear this, because this is truth, and I think they would back me up on it. But I remember them wanting us to sign something that was just. I knew, I was like, this is bullshit. I'm not signing it. And I told the other band members, do not sign this. I mean, if you want this to work, we gotta stick together. Every single one of them signed it.
Oh,
before I did, and so it was like, I'm like, either quit, or I was like, well, I signed it, and then what they did was turn around and fire. They didn't fire me. They turned around and fired to break up our unity as a band. And I look at it now, and it's kind of funny, and they should have just paid us what we were worth. It's really what, how about doing that?
So let me ask you this: someone listening to this is, I don't know, 25 to 35 years old, right? And they're thinking about going on tour. And like, what advice would you give them so that, because this same shit goes on, maybe not to as much of an extent and so blatantly, but I'm sure this stuff still goes on. There are certain people that just, their idea of a good business deal is if the other guy is just totally fucked beyond belief. Unfortunately, and then there's other guys that are like, okay, let's be fair. Fair means being fair to you, fair to me. But what would you advise people do when they're, to prevent something like that from happening, if it's preventable?
First of all, I would say know your worth, know your value. If you've never done a tour before, and you're like, just like everyone, you have to start somewhere. You can't go in there demanding a lot. You just take what they can pay you. But once you have, built up some experiences and you know your value, I say don't stay with one artist or tour too long. I would say go, if you have another opportunity for something else, go do it, because all that does is make you more valuable. And also, don't ever ever agree to do something that you're not comfortable with up front. And someone says, hey, we're going to pay you this, but like, in 3 months, we're going to come back and renegotiate and we'll give you a raise. That's a lie. It'll never happen. They will never, as soon as you say, hey, you remember you told me 3 months, it's been 3 months, you're not getting any more money. They're not being honest with you. Always get what you're comfortable with. If it's a 2-year tour, then get enough where you're like, that's what you make for those 2 years, and that they don't have the power to tell you, that they tricked you and said, yeah, you're making this now, but we're going to come back. And they're not ever going to come back and do that. It's just not going to happen. This isn't corporate America. It's not, that would be my advice.
Thanks, man. I think that's real honest.
Yeah.
Do you have any cool stories about the Eagles, Aerosmith, Jimmy Page, or the Stones, or any of those experiences opening for them with Kenny Wayne Shepherd? Like, I couldn't imagine. Like, did you get to hang out and talk to Jimmy Page, for example? I mean, I couldn't imagine. I mean, I would imagine like anything the guy basically says is like going to school. Anything related to music, that must be a hell of an education.
Yeah, the Jimmy Page experience was actually when Jimmy was being backed up by the Black Crowes.
Yeah.
And we did that tour. And he was actually, he sort of came and went on his own. He wasn't on the same schedule that the Crowes were, but he was always cool to us. And we didn't have a whole lot of hang time with Jimmy, but we did get to talk to him and hang out with him on stage and stuff. But, with bands like Aerosmith and Van Halen, we got to hang with those guys all the time. Eddie Van Halen would be in our dressing room before drinking a beer before when he was there, when we just got to the venue and got off the bus to get to our dressing room. Eddie's in there, already got a beer cracked there. I said, where the fuck have you guys been? Let's party. Let's hang. Hey, and all those guys would want to, not party, but like
just hang and socialize.
Would hang, yeah.
They're just as bored on tour. They're just as bored the other 22 and a half hours as you are.
Yeah. Every time we saw, Aerosmith and those guys were same thing. They were really cool to us. It was kind of like talking to a high schoolers. Those guys were, because they had been famous and or I don't know about famous, but they've been doing it a long time, and they were really cool.
Did you happen to, like, was there any lessons that you learned from any of these guys? Like, maybe B.B. King or Page or Dylan? Was there anything musically that you either saw them do or you had a conversation and, Dylan dropped some nugget on you about, do this musically, or the audience will react a certain way if you do this? Anything like that?
Not really. You learn just from watching them. I think you learn, like, with Bob, man, there were nights.
What you called him? Did you call him Bob, or did you call him?
I called him Bob.
Did you really? That's so cool. Like, he wasn't like, it's Mr. Dylan or anything like that. He was really cool.
No, just he it's kind of bittersweet too, because now working with Jacob and being friends with Jake and hearing some of his stories from Bob as father,
or not,
but there were nights where he was just monumental. Like, just like, wow, I've never seen anything like that. That was so freaking vibey and cool, and he was on. And then there would be nights where you could tell he was uncomfortable on stage, and he didn't, he wasn't into it. And, was not. It was kind of. But I think just watching everyone and just paying attention to being there in the moment, you just kind of you learn things, whether it's musical or not, whether it's about entertainment, and how to, I learned that, hey man, it's not always just about up there, playing your best. You need to act. If you're looking like you're having fun and you're rocking out, whether or not you're sucking or not, you're entertaining, and that's what people want to see.
Yeah.
Now, there's definitely a balance there, but I'm trying to think on that question too, because I know there are some musical lessons there, but I can't think of them.
It's interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I just thought of something. You mentioned B.B. King. Well, B.B., had such command of the stage, and but his band, I learned, this is what I used to do. James Toney was his organ player. James passed away some years back, but he had a B3 and a grand piano. That's pretty much it, man. The meat and potatoes, and this is well over 20 years ago, and James was probably in his late 60s then, or maybe had a bottle like whiskey by the piano. And I'd go watch him and just kind of sit, like almost stand right behind him, without being on stage, I think I even remember bringing him a drink one time, and just listening to him play and the dynamics of that band. I learned a lot listening to those guys. I will say that was really cool.
Any specifics that you could
Well, just how they would, just like dynamic wise, like how they and the way they followed BB, they knew when to build, and like how to support BB in a solo, building a solo, that all of a sudden they just morph into this like huge orchestra sound, everybody's, and then all of a sudden with the crack of a snare drum, like they're back down, like just grooving in, but barely heard. I mean, it was just a very dynamic band, and learning how to mimic that, or at least try to.
I imagine the vibe was different when you had B.B. King versus Van Halen.
Oh man, totally.
That had to be like night and day, no?
Totally.
Oh.
Yeah, it was different. Yeah.
Then you toured with Gavin DeGraw, and I was curious, he's more of a pop guy.
Yeah.
Was it an adjustment from, doing all these blues, soul, more blues stuff, then switching to pop?
Well, no, not really, because, man, I'll say this, Gavin's one of my favorite singers, and I know a lot of people that they know him as like some of the pop stuff, but the Chariot record, me and him got along well, and we're still friends. I just saw him a couple weeks ago, and the thing with Gavin is we like the same music. He's a Bill Withers fan. He's a Marvin Gaye fan. He loves and can sing the shit out of all of that stuff. And there's many times where we would, at sound check, we were just jamming on, and he has these killer vocals. And it wasn't that much of a adjustment to me, because I was trying to bring that to that pop thing, because you know, the first, I toured with Gavin like 1 year in 2000, I think in 2008, and I was only with him for about a year. And it was a little bit smaller. It was, you know, we weren't using tracks or anything like that yet. And, you know, I think he was kind of struggling on the sophomore record. And, but then I got a call back from around 2011 to say, hey man, I got this new record out, and it's really, I'm really proud of it, and it's poppy, but I think this could be cool, man. You know, so it was like having a Hammond B3 and I had my synth stuff too, and acoustic along with the pop sound was. That version of his band was great. And that was, we were pretty tight, man. And it worked. So I felt like maybe that's part of the reason I was, you know, hired, or was because of that.
Was Billy Norris in that band?
Billy was not in the first version of the band. It was another guy, a friend of mine, a guy named Brian Dennis, do you remember the band DAG? DAG?
No. Check
him out. This band, so Brian was in this band, and they were way ahead of their time, and out of North Carolina, and Chapel Hill kind of guys, and they were funky, man. And Brian played a little guitar on that stuff, and it's a killer musician. He was a guitar player, but I think he just got sort of tired of the road, and you know, as artists, they want to try different things, and then they when Brian was done, or you know, however that ended, they brought Billy Norris in, who is just green as could be. He shows up. We're in New Orleans, and there's this kid. Hey guys, you know, like, I play guitar. I'm like, oh god. but we ended up becoming good friends, and he actually was coming in. This is at the end of like around 2009, beginning of 2009, and then I kind of said, I'm out, you know. Yeah. And Billy stayed with Gavin and then when I came back in 2011, he was like a new player and a new dude, you know. He knew the ropes a little bit. And he's still doing it. And I just saw him too.
He's from down here.
Yeah.
He's from St. Pete.
Sure is.
Okay, DAG, Brian Dennis. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you get hooked up roundabout with Joe. How did you meet Joe, and how'd you get that gig?
Well, I originally met Joe and all the Eagles guys in '96 when we were Kenny Wayne Shepherd Band was the opening. We were the openers for the Eagles in Europe. Hell Freezes Over. We did probably 7 weeks in Europe, maybe 8 weeks. I can't remember. We did some really awesome, you know, we did Wembley Stadium twice and all these killer places.
Wait a minute. Was there a guy named Timothy Drury?
Yes, Timothy was playing piano.
Yeah, okay, right.
Or with the Eagles.
Right.
And I met,
he's a good guy. I interviewed him.
Yeah, he is. He was a good guy.
Really good guy. He's playing with
who's he playing?
He's playing with Felder now.
All right. Okay. Wow.
He's playing with, I know. Yeah, and he was with Whitesnake for like 9 years.
All right. I have a buddy who plays bass with Whitesnake, Michael Devin.
That's cool.
And they actually, I did some overdub stuff, Hammond, like, you know, John Lord style, like, you know, Hammond through Marshall and Leslie and all this stuff for him. And they were about to go. He called me and he was like, "Man, you want to do this?" And it's like they're about to go to Japan for like a year or something. I was like, "Man, I can't. I can't just go to Japan or do. I mean, I bet it would have been cool and having that's David
Coverdale.
I keep wanting to call him Cloverdale for some reason, but it's Coverdale. It was a Deep Purple, you know.
Yeah.
And was killer, and it was a great singer, man. And it probably been a lot of fun, but that's awesome. Yeah, Timothy Drury.
You haven't heard that name in a while, right?
No, I haven't.
I figured he looked like Yeah, I just spoke to him like 2 weeks ago. Super cool guy. I mean, he's okay. So you originally met the Eagles in '96.
Oh, I never answered your question. So, also, so with Joe, so I had met Joe then and all there, but none of that really mattered because, you know, hell, at that point, it was so long ago. But in that same era, 1994, we did the Ledbetter Heights record, and we did it at House of Blues or Kiva Studios in Memphis. Well, Kiva was owned by Gary Bells, and Gary was at the time going into business with the House of Blues, turning his studio into House of Blues studio, and at the same time, all the House of Blues venues with Isaac Tigert, and who is actually from around Jackson, Tennessee, but Memphis kind of royalty. And then along, I think, with maybe Dan Aykroyd and James Belushi, and among others, you know, and the House of Blues thing started happening. Well, I became friends with Gary through the Kenny Wayne Shepherd thing. Well, Gary Bells ends up, you know, had his place out in a studio also in Encino, which was, I think, originally the first House of Blues studio where Wallflowers and Counting Crows did those first monumental records. Well, Gary ends up in Nashville and we become friends, and he would come to 18 South shows or Acme or whatever, and we'd hang out. And I'd go to his studio. He's got the House of Blues studio here. He had Ocean Way. And basically I got a call from Gary saying, hey, you know, he's been friends with Joe Walsh since, you know, the 70s. And he was like, well, Joe's wants to put a kick-ass band together. And he was like, you're the first and only guy that I even would recommend to him, thought of. What are you doing this summer?
Wow. Fucking playing for Joe Walsh. Yeah, man. That didn't take you a fucking half second to figure out.
And he goes, okay, well, I'll put you in touch with him. Next thing you know, I was in doing a gig with Charles Kelly, and we were actually staying at Sunset Marquee, I think, but across the street, they had a treadmill. They got a place where you're allowed to go work out with in that area, and I was on the treadmill, and I saw this California number. I said, wait a minute, to stop, and it was like, Jimmy, it's Joe. And I'm like, oh, cool, hey, man. You know, it's like, I love the fact that he actually called. He likes to call.
Why? Some people don't? Some
guys,
what do they have?
They have their manager or tour manager or personal assistant or whoever.
Yeah. I think that says a lot about somebody, because it's always, to me anyway, I always evaluate someone based on the small thing. You know, how do you treat the waiter? Do you hold your door open for your wife? Shit like that, to me, is going to tell me a lot more about you than, like, you know, how you treat the guy that's, you know, paying you. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that says a lot, that, you know, it's important enough to him. And it should be, because, you know, when you're touring with someone, it's an important thing. You're putting his music out there. And if he doesn't give a shit enough about to you know, I don't know. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. No, I was totally, like, I felt great about it. I was like, man, you know, he's a musician. He's a musician, but an artist and great, incredible singer and songwriter. But he's just a badass, and I love that guy, man. It was really cool. And it was like, he's like, man, call me anytime you got any questions. And we talked, and, you know, we would talk about songs and parts, and I still feel like, you know, I can call him at any time and he'll answer the phone, you know, which is just really cool.
That is cool. Yeah, it's really cool. So, okay, anything you've learned since touring with Joe, musicianship wise or entertainment wise? He's a hell of an entertainer.
Oh yeah. I've with Joe, he sometimes you may not think he's listening to what you're doing, but he always is. And I've learned that I've learned some things that certain certain inversions of chords may not be, even though it's the same chord, may not be the right inversion for it. But I guess to pay attention to detail, and that, every note, even one note, matters. While before I was just kind of like, and not in an obsessive way. There are some people that just get on my nerves, especially in the studio, that are like, "Hey man, will you play the 7 on the thing?" And I'm like, when everyone else is playing, I'm like, no, because it doesn't need to be played. But with Joe, he would, there are certain things that you don't necessarily hear right off until you have to really listen hard for it. And then when you play it and you hear it, you're like, oh hell yeah, that's it. That's what, that's what it was missing. But sometimes on records you can't hear stuff like that. Even by the time you got it all, things compressed and EQs and sounds, it just having that. And I guess with him, it was like, no, considering that he can still remember what, he played through on certain songs and sounds and chords. It taught me that it all matters. And sometimes not playing is sometimes just not doing anything, which I knew that already, being a blues player. I mean, but, so yeah, it's hard to put my finger on it, but yeah, I've learned a lot from playing with Joe.
It sounds like a lot of that's because of his delivery, because it sounds like you heard the same message from other people, but the way he has delivered it to you was in like either, I don't know, a positive way or a constructive way or a supportive way or a hey, it's important for us as together that we do this the right way, as opposed to like being an asshole or a disciplinarian for no reason kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, and if because especially when, because certain things matter to, like, there's certain parts of a song that I write that I really want to be played right. And the same with someone like Joe or anyone, that creates music. But, there are just some things that I didn't hear in the initial songs, like a Barnstorm song, or even like something as simple as Rocky Mountain Way. Like I'll show you, like, and not to be, but there is a part on Rocky. I'm going to find this, which is, everybody thinks they know the song, but it's like, whatever. But there's also, that, okay, everybody knows that, but there's also a thing that goes, instead of going, he does a on the last one, and you think it's just the same thing over and over,
but he has that higher note in there.
Yeah, but he goes to a 4, and you're like, oh shit, okay, yeah, you're right, and you don't really, it's like kind of buried in the mix, and kind of like that. Anyway, whatever. But to answer your question, yeah, I've learned a lot, and hopefully still will.
How did it go? I don't know if you could answer this, if I'm allowed to ask this. How did it go playing with Ringo? I remember you told me you were going to go play with Ringo Starr, I think for Joe's 70th birthday or something.
Yeah.
Like that. How did that go? If you could talk about it. If you can't, I'll just delete it.
No, I can talk. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was a blast, man. It was a killer party. it was a really fun night. And God, man, I got to play with Ringo, and of course Don was on bass, Steve Lukather on guitar, then Tom Bukovac, who plays with us with Joe, and that was in Ringo. That was the band. And when we did
not a bad group of guys.
No, right? And then with Joe, we played first with Joe, and it was me and Tom and Joe Vitale on drums, and then Kenny Passarelli on bass. Kenny Passarelli was the original Barnstorm. I mean, that cool. Speaking of like Rocky Mountain Way, the bass line. He's the only guy really that can play that song right, because I played it with him and I played it with other people, and not that it's that, but it's just that feel and the way he bends the note in there. It's like, yeah, that's it. That's it. Really cool.
Do you have any cool like non-gossip stories about Joe, like cool or funny things that happened while you're on tour with him?
I don't know. Like, I mean, there's always.
I got a question for you, man.
Okay.
Where does he get his T-shirt selections from? He's always got like the most obscure but really cool T-shirts. Like, how the fuck do you find these in the first place, man?
I think he has. Well, I know that he. So, our buddy, my buddy, but Joe's kind of guy I love this guy. His name's Smokey Wendell, and and Smokey's been helping take, kind of like Joe's guy, and just he's the guy that gets stuff done, and I think Smokey's always on the lookout for shirts, and I had this shirt on one time, and it has like a turntable on it, and I remember Smokey saying, "Oh man, what's the brand of that shirt? Where'd you get that?" Because I think when he was going to go look online, he was like, "I'm going to find some." He'll go hook Joe up with some cool shirts, and of course Joe, has access to
inside secrets of T-shirt company. Yeah, he wore this T-shirt, man, with when the Eagles played down here in Tampa, like I said, like 5 years ago, I think it was, and he comes out in this like. It was like a giant octopus wrapped around me. I was like, wow, that's fucking really cool. So I went on Amazon and I actually found it. Of course, I'm a big blocky guy, and it didn't look, Joe's like much slimmer than me, a little narrower than me. And, it looked much better on him than me. I did not wear that shirt well. I returned it, I think, I gave it to one of my kids, I think. But
I know what shirt you're talking about.
Yeah. That's like,
I've seen it. Yeah,
it's such a cool. I was like, where the fuck? How did you even like? That's like something you might see on like Etsy, maybe, or that was like just weird. How I was like, I've never seen anything like that. So, your brother David said that you guys were always playing music together as a kid. I think he told me, in fact, you guys roomed together when you were younger.
Yeah, we did.
And so I know that how close you guys are, but I would imagine that. Having each other probably allowed you or pushed you to musically to achieve higher levels at a younger age.
Yeah, but we had such different tastes too, though. I was in the 80s, man. I was I hate to admit it, but of course, we loved our Southern rock, being from Louisiana. I loved the Allman Brothers and Leonard Skinner and 38 Special and all that stuff, but I also loved the synth movement that was happening.
The what?
Synthesizer.
Oh, synthesizer. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like I mean,
you played keyboards, so
and there were things that I was into. He was like, I don't know, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And he was way into like John Cougar Mellencamp, which I liked it okay, but I wasn't like blown away by it, But then as we got, and that's, I'm talking, this is when we're young, like, I was a Van Halen fan, of course I remember playing Jump for, You know,
that was
1984 when it
synth.
first came out. You know, I was 11 years old in 1984. So, you know, David really went. He didn't give a shit about that. You know,
he's a blues guy.
Yeah, he would. But then, you know, it was like that Bryan Adams. It cuts like a knife and all that, or maybe even the one went to. That was a cool freaking record. I gotta say.
That was.
You know. Anyway.
Hey, I'll show you how out of touch I am. So, like a few years ago, everybody's talking about, I think, Ryan Adams.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? His name is Bryan Adams, not Ryan. I didn't know it was a new guy.
Like, no, he's got to change his name.
Yeah, I was like, this is ridiculous. Get his name right. I thought Bryan Adams was making a comeback. I'm like, well, that's cool, but get his name right. So out of it I was.
Right.
You've been around a while, Jimmy, and I was curious if you'd be kind enough to share maybe, you know, one or two mistakes you might have made along your journey, and what were the lessons you learned from the mistakes? You know, as far as like tuition, we all pay tuition in everything we do.
Yeah. You know, I think some of the mistakes I made were maybe not like making contacts with people and not being educated to who maybe they really were. And like which there's also something charming about that, because people love that. They don't want to be treated. But man, I'm hanging out with some people that probably could have and would have helped me with my career along the way, or maybe had been other opportunities, but because I wasn't really, I wasn't present or paying attention, or I was more concerned about going to get a drink or so, you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. But
well, you were younger. Yeah.
When you're younger, you just don't care about networking and schmoozing or whatever. You just want to kind of go get drunk and meet some girls.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. But there were probably some missed opportunities. And I've learned that now, you know, pay attention to where you are and who you're with, and treat everybody the same. Like, you know, everyone is significant. And also don't like, you know, nobody wants to be around someone who, you know, hey, I got to go. I'm going to talk to this more important person.
Yeah. Right.
But that would be it. Just to pay attention, because you never know who you're going to be talking to.
There was a guy named Barry Beckett. I don't know if you ever heard that name. He was a producer. Yeah. Okay. So he's a keyboard player, producer in Muscle Shoals. And,
amazing.
Yeah. And do you know a guy named Mike Durham?
Very well. Yes.
Okay. So
I saw you did an interview with Mike, right?
I sure did.
Yeah.
Great guy. Amazing player. Anyway, he told me that Barry had a sign in his office, and, you know, honestly, I've interviewed 200 people so far, and I'll be the first to admit I can't remember everything and I got a great memory, but it's like, it's, you know, probably 350 hours of time, and there's no way I can remember. There's a few things I remember. One of them is Mike's story, and Mike said the story about Barry. He had a sign in front of his office, and it said, be careful of whose toes you step on the way up, because they will be attached to the ass that you have to kiss on the way down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was pretty perfect. That was pretty classic. I wrote, there's a few things like that I remember that were like, okay, that goes in the memory bank, because that's pretty practical, like that kind of, like, you know, plain old fashioned common sense kind of logic. So if you had to go back and give yourself advice, it'd be like, have a little more level of awareness, and don't forget this is a business, and you know, play your music with integrity, but be on the lookout for some career opportunities that you might have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Who are the biggest influences on you playing wise? You mentioned John Lord. I don't know if he was an influence.
Well, I love what John Lord does, but you know, Billy Preston.
Yeah, great.
Love Billy's playing. I mean, just so soulful. Of course, you know, every piano player loves Ray Charles. Hey, man, I was a fan of Fats Domino. I mean, you know, being a Louisiana boy, he was my first concert. in the 80s, but I loved early Elton John stuff too. I mean,
my God.
I had records, like a lot of, I remember having a 45 of Crocodile Rock when listening to it when I was, 4 or 5 years old, just dancing around going, this shit's cool,
What a songwriter that guy was, man.
Yeah. And then, Tumbleweed Connection and all that stuff.
Incredible.
Loved it. And loved his playing, man.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Beautiful.
Elton John's playing back then,
Have you ever heard of a guy named Melvin Seals? He's a keyboard player. He was like the original founding member in the Jerry Garcia band.
Wow.
I actually got him coming on the show in a few weeks, so I'm interested in talking to him. He's got to have some pretty good stories from back in the day.
I bet he does.
Yeah.
Wow.
Imagine that. Yeah, it was him, Jerry, and David Kahn or something. I forgot the bass player's name, something like that. But those three were the original guys. Jimmy, if I asked you to pick your 3 favorite albums in no particular order, just for today, knowing that it could change tomorrow or the next day, what would you pick?
I mentioned Tumbleweed Connection.
That's a great one.
I love that. I mean, the Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon is pretty badass. I know it's right totally different from like what I would go with that. The next one, man, it's only 3.
Only 3, my brother.
Give me a sec.
While you're thinking, I was listening to actually Tumbleweed Connection yesterday because I just happened to, I was like pressure cleaning my freaking outside of my house, which is like the most miserable thing to do. The only good thing is I got to listen to music for like 3 hours straight, and it was this in the cycle. Elton came on, and I'm just looking at these songs here, like Country Comfort, Come Down in Time, Son of Your Father. I mean, there's some Where To Now, St. Peter. I mean, there's so many powerful songs in there that are just like swept under the rug because of his genuine hits were like just even like such big sellers. It's almost unfair to the guy.
Yeah, I got one for you, and there's more, but I listen to this record all the time, and it's a live record. It's Bill Withers, Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, it's the
very soulful cat.
Yeah.
Very soulful.
Oh man, he was at Joe's birthday party.
Oh really? How's his health? Is he doing okay?
Yeah, he. I went and talked to him and sat down and said. I was like, man, I know you don't know me. My name's Jimmy Wallace. I play Hammond B3 and keyboards with Joe. And he's like, oh yeah, man. He was like eating. He was kind of in the middle of eating, but he got to the party a little late. Everybody had already eaten, but it was like catered with like fried chicken, and that was awesome. The food was amazing at this party. And I was like, man, I just got to tell you, there's this version of a Harry Nilsson song you did called Everybody's Talking. And I play your version of that song all the time, and I just want to tell you, man, it's how cool it is, and how much of that I love your music, and that's all I wanted to tell you, and I'm not gonna bug you. And he was like, "Yeah, man," he's like, "Yeah, man, yeah."
That's so cool.
And I sat down a little bit longer, and we talked a little bit, and then I was like, "All right, I excused myself so he could finish eating." But I thought
soulful
cool.
dude, man, really soul. He's got that grandma's
hands.
Yeah, Grandma's Hands is a beautiful song, man. And the story he tells behind it is really, in front of the song is really cool, I think.
Yeah.
What's something that you've learned about yourself along this entire journey? I know you said earlier on you learned about that you needed to you learned confidence in Kenny Wayne. Is there anything else like along your whole musical journey that you've learned about yourself or figured out, or is there anything you want to figure out still?
Yeah, there's things I want to. I want to get more into a little bit of a jazz thing, because I love like the Hammond, like Jimmy Smith and McGriff and those dudes, man. I don't like to go too deep into that, but I have a passion for the Hammond, I have a C3 and I have an A102, but I love playing that thing, man. I love trying to find new ways to make it sound different, even though that it is what it is. But with the drawbars, you can do a lot of things that it's, you can do more tones than you realize with it. And I know my weaknesses too. I've learned my strengths, but I've learned my weaknesses too, and I've learned to accept it and not obsess over. I learned as soon as I like a challenge. I just did this 2 weeks last minute with Jewel on the road right before Christmas, and and she was doing these really kind of weird arrangements of Christmas songs that was totally not hard to vibe to. And me and Stanton, we mentioned earlier, yeah. And my buddy Nick Buda, who's a drummer, she wasn't really happy with what was going on with the band, so she kind of made a switch and hired us to come in and see what, I guess, save the day or whatever. But that was challenging because I only had one day. I had a matter of 5 hours to learn all the songs.
I remember that because we were supposed to have our interview that day, and you're like, "Dude, I've got this major." It was like, I remember you telling me, I was like,
"That's
holy
right,
shit, jump on that, man! Don't worry about this. We
can
do this."
Exactly.
I do remember that.
But by the fourth or fifth show, probably like by the third show, it was like real rewarding because she was loving it and into it, and it was, and we took something that was really hard to groove to and said, no, we're going to do it this way. And we didn't really change the arrangement or the notes per se, but we added what we do, and it was doing that, even though it was stressful at first and flying in like that and flying in and then going over these rehearsing all day and then doing the show the same night. It was like brutal, but all that kind of stuff makes you better, makes you a better player. And I like a good challenge. I guess.
It sounds like you had one. It sounds like you did what you needed to do to get the challenge.
Yeah.
Hey, what's your best childhood memory?
There's my best. Well, man, that's a hard question. Not related to me. It doesn't have to be related to music or anything.
No, just in general.
One of my best childhood memories, you might think is weird, was I think I was in 4th or 5th grade, and it started to snow, and we never see snow in Louisiana, and they cut school half a day, and I had just finished this Christmas play. I was just I wasn't a main character, and I remember coming out of the elementary school where my mom was a librarian, and my dad pulled up in his pickup truck to pick me up and take me home. And it was like snowing, and it was like Christmas break. It was the last day before. That's a memory that I don't,
That's cool, man.
That always, I'll never forget, because it was like just a warm and fuzzy, like, hey, it's going to be Christmas soon and we're getting out of it.
Yeah. Snowing. Everything's working. Everything's falling into place.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I think it's a good one. Something or someone you miss from your childhood?
I miss my grandfather. He died. He gave me a baby grand that he bought for my mother in 1950. and he bought for my mother and my aunt. And he died in 1987, I believe, or 88, somewhere in there. And I was a teenager when he died, and I had like a 14 or maybe 15. But I wish I had known him more when I was an adult, because he was very musical. He loved the fact that I played piano, and he was a kind of surly guy, like, and he had a really deep voice. He's like, "Hey, play that piano, Jim. Hit it harder," and he called me Jim, and
everybody else calls you Jimmy, right?
You're right. Yeah. And sometimes it get on my nerves, because like, man, I'm beating the crap out of it. What else do you want me to do? And he was very religious. He loved hymns and stuff, and I did not. So, but I have a feeling as an adult, we would have, he would have been kind of like, maybe he would have liked what I was doing musically, maybe.
Sure. Well, thank you for sharing that. I am almost 100% sure I asked your brother that question and he gave the same answer.
Really?
I can't swear to it, but I'm pretty confident. I have to go back and listen to his interview, but I believe he said the same thing. Because I remember asking him, your mother's father or your father's father? And he says, your mom's dad.
Wow.
So, yeah. Do you have a non-musical superpower?
Well, you know what? I'm very intuitive with people and things, as long as I'm not like in a committed relationship with them. But like in general, like I sometimes can see things and before they happen, like and nothing. I think it's just intuition. I think I have a good intuition. It just sometimes doesn't work on if I'm dating someone or if I'm too.
I had this woman that was a friend of mine, and she said, "I have great intuition, but when it comes to relationships, I have a bad picker. Like whoever she picks is broken." She said, but her intuition for people is pretty good.
Yeah, same.
Are you a rule breaker or a rule follower?
I'm a rule breaker.
Yeah, I like that.
I hate rules.
Is your birthday? What month is your birthday in?
I'm June. I was born June 22nd. Okay. I'm considered a Cancer, but I'm on the cusp. Okay. That's what they say. In the rule things, it depends. I've also gotten in trouble a lot for breaking rules. So when it comes to legalities, I got to be careful, because it's like the one dude that'll get busted for something, would be me when the other 100 people didn't. But I hate being confined or boxed into certain rules. Yeah, I understand. I'm like that very much. I'm allergic to that, to be honest with you. Yeah. I've learned to sort of like do it tactfully as I've gotten older, instead of like overtly like, I'm going to break your fucking rules. Right. You just get smoother about it. You get a little more slick as you get older. Yeah. You just don't make a big deal out of it. Well, you have any hobbies or interests outside of music? Yes. I love motors. I love motorcycles. I love riding more than the actual motor, but I like the old cars. I like tinkering around on them. I don't want to like rebuild an engine yet, but I like that, and I love I love being on the water. I love fishing. Bass fishing? You do bass fishing up there? Yeah, I love bass fishing, man. It's so relaxing. Yeah, I love it. I love nature. I like to be outside. I'm an outside kid. I could have the coolest video game of the century, and I would get bored with it in like 5 minutes. Sure. This is me. I'm like, I want to go outside.
I think your brother is the same way, if I remember correctly, right? You guys both spend a lot of time outdoors.
Well, we used to. David, I don't know how much outdoor times he.
Well, he don't have any time now.
I think when we did growing up, we did a lot. I feel like he doesn't as much as he used to, and I think hopefully that'll change when their youngest gets a little older.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, I've raised 3 kids. He's in a tough. He's in a. That's the tough part of raising kids where he's at right now, because he's got 3 young ones, and then you got to drop. We had this for years. You had to drop one off at elementary, one off at middle, one off at high school. And then by the time you do the whole circle, my wife would come back and it's like an hour here and then she's, got to go back out.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're looking at trying to improve on, whether it's musically, personal, business, or anything else? You had mentioned that you'd like to be able to get more into the jazz stuff on the music end.
Yeah. I probably should improve on my social media skills. I'm just not into it that much.
Well, dude, you made a post last week. I was so happy that you did that about I just use this to talk about when my band's playing some gigs and if people want to come see us. And I was if there was a love button, I would have hit love. I love that post. It was just thank God someone's not insane.
That's how I feel about it. I mean, I have people that I've known for years, and they just go on these political rants about things. I care about what they're. I mean, not that I'm being insensitive. It's just man, I don't put that on you.
Yeah. I know.
Or I don't want everybody to know, and I don't want everybody to know what I'm doing all the time.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, the only reason I got on Facebook and all that stuff was so my friends could find me, or maybe somebody I hadn't connected with in a while. And then it turned into this whole thing. But that's the way I really feel about it. And it doesn't need to go that deep. But I'm not, I need to be better about promoting myself, I guess.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of musicians I think that's a discomfort level for most musicians in general. Mm-hmm. Significantly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because I've talked to a lot of guys, and I come from the opposite end. I'm been running a marketing company for 18 years.
Yeah.
So it's in my mind, well, unless something doesn't get typically bought until it gets sold first. Now, I know you're not selling a widget, but still there's, but you guys have never had to do anything like that, or just, they don't teach that or whatever. But yeah, I hear that often, and I kind of empathize with you guys because it's a tough spot to be in. So one more.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Is there
no problem. No problem. I'm just turning my it's getting cold in here, and I've got this Nest thing. I'm turning my
Oh, that's cool. So it's you could just go from your cell phone and turn it.
Yeah.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
Doesn't know anything about social media, but he's got a Nest. That's impressive.
I like gadgets.
Yeah, that's cool. So last question, man. What's the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years? And has that change been deliberate or just a natural process of aging?
I would say that I've become almost more I don't know if outgoing's the word, but I because what we talked about earlier about missing opportunities, I've become more aware of my surroundings, and even when I catch myself going negative, I try hard to find the positives in every situation and treat everyone like they're, and think of everyone as being significant because you are. And I think in the past I was maybe more introverted, or shy or scared. And now I'm not scared to give my opinion if it's asked for. I won't want to walk around and like the what we were just talking about social media. I don't want to just give you my opinion when you're like, well, I don't care.
Yeah, right. You don't feel compelled to tell everybody what's going through your mind.
But, I feel like that if someone asks me that I can be honest with them and not fear that,
That's awesome. Good for you, man.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hey, I want to just talk about your album Working for Peanuts, because if people want to check you out, that's a really good place to start. So I think it's available on CD Baby, and it's called Working for Peanuts. Want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, it's a concept album that I put together. It's been out for a while now, but I had this just idea, like to I'd come home from a tour and I have these little like figurines. Matter of fact, here's one right here. I'll show it to you.
Oh, there you go.
This is how it started. I'm showing Craig a picture of it's
Linus.
Actually, this is Schroeder.
Schroeder, right? I couldn't think of his name.
Yeah, no, and he's got a little piano that goes with him that's up here.
That's cool.
And I came home one day and I just was looking at him. I was trying to write, and I'm like, in Nashville, people write. They want their song to get cut by, whoever, Kenny Chesney, Jason Aldean. I'm like, well, I don't. Yeah, that would be great, but I don't write that style, and I don't. It's too late in my life to train myself to write that, and I don't really like that stuff that much anyway. No offense, but I saw this dude, and I said, I wonder what he's thinking. I wonder what he's doing in his life. He's got this piano. He's trying to get out of this town. He's got these weird kids around him. He's got this chick, Lucy, who won't leave him alone, but is kind of a pain in the ass. and I said, oh, write a song about him. And that's how it started. And I wrote the first song. It's called Life of Schroeder.
And I think that's so cool.
It's kind of like I was like, I'm going to try to write this like, me, but like, with a fun kind of playful thing. Kind of like Ben Folds was to do something like that. I think it's great. And that's how it started. And then I was like, I did one song and I said, how about do a whole record? And that's what I did. And it was called Working for Peanuts. And because they're the Peanuts characters. And there's no like, all the songs were my idea. There's no like copyright infringement going on there. Matter of fact, I talked to the people, at the Schultz Museum, and there was I was going to go out there and play for them, but then the family, they're very protective of their trademark, and I got an email from them, and they're not music people. I mean, at least I didn't get that vibe. Maybe they are.
Yeah.
But it ended up that I didn't go out there. But it's a really fun record, and they could be about anybody. I just happened to. They were my motif, Man,
I think that's so cool how people get creative ideas and just. I mean, that's like really. I always find that fascinating where ideas come from.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that you went and executed on it, I think that was really cool, because plenty of people would get an idea and just say, oh, no, I'm not going to, whatever. But I really respect that you went and then made a whole freaking record of that. If your idea is based on this fiction, a concept about these characters that were, I think it's really cool, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
And people can get that on CD Baby?
They can get it on CD Baby.
Is it on your website too, Jimmy Wallace Music?
Well, there's on my website it promotes it a little bit, but I'm not sure that. I think CD Baby is really the best way to get that. It might even be on something like Amazon or I don't really know, but if you visit my website and you contact me if you're interested in the record too, you can do that too, you know.
And Jimmy's website is jimmywallacemusic.com. And you could also check him out if the Wallflowers are on tour, or if Joe Walsh comes back out on tour solo, or whatever the next thing you might do, man. Any inclination of the next?
Yeah, no, I have no idea. I'm just kind of, I'm trying to write, maybe do another record. So eventually, and just see what comes to me.
Awesome. Well, if you put out another record, come on the show, and I'll listen to it and we'll promote it.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah,
great, man.
I'd love to do that. Hey, man, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You're a super cool dude. I appreciate you being so transparent and genuine with all your answers. And I hope people come and see you and send you money. It's Jimmy Wallace. He's an amazing freaking player. He's played with everybody. He's got a great vibe, and he's just a good guy. So, everybody, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Jimmy, thank you again for spending your time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, man, you're welcome. Thank you for having me, Craig. Enjoyed it.
Go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get notified of future episodes along with some cool stuff we've got going on now. Be nice. Go play your guitar, and most important, have fun. That's what it's all about. Till next time, peace and love, and I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.